Hey, what's up? It's Mr. Dean and we are back on the Mario RPG grind once again. I have already taken a look at Super Mario RPG and Paper Mario, which are both amazing in their own right. And this time, the whole Mario RPG canon splits apart once again with a new sub-series being called Mario and Luigi. So will the Mario RPG series keep a winning streak and go 3 for 3? Well, let's find out. A lot of the origins for why an additional Mario RPG series was created really goes back to Paper Mario. After the release of Paper Mario, Nintendo opted to launch another subset of the Mario RPG franchise for the Game Boy Advance, this time being developed by Alpha Dream. Generally, for the next 15 years or so, Paper Mario would take the form of being the console Mario RPG series, and Mario and Luigi would be the handheld entry, oftentimes these games incorporating gimmicks from their respective devices. Anyway, the gameplay itself, while similar at its core, is different in many ways. Paper Mario has you only controlling Mario throughout its world, with most of the games giving you different partners that have different abilities. This affected both the way puzzle solving and actual battling worked. For instance, in the original Paper Mario, your partner didn't actually have its own health, as it was simply just there to give you an extra turn. The structure of the story in Paper Mario typically also follows that of a book, which also makes perfect sense because, well, paper. In the original game, the story was split apart into chapters, which really helps sell the premise of everything taking the form of paper. Another thing I found unique about Paper Mario was the battle system itself. The amount of damage done by both you and enemies was pretty low, and alongside that you also had less health. The game also had the badge system, which allowed you to pick whichever of an assortment of unlockable badges to alternate your moveset in battle or even have other effects. Overall, I find Paper Mario to be a bit more slow-paced and wacky of an experience. Also, in the future, some of the games like the Thousand Year Door and Super Paper Mario had some of the most fascinating stories of any Mario game. Then that brings us to the Mario and Luigi series, starting with the subject of today's video, Superstar Saga. In contrast with Paper Mario, now we control both Mario and Luigi with the A and B buttons respectively in the overworld. However, throughout the game we also learn different moves that are required for traversal, more on those later though. In general, I feel like Superstar Saga really goes out of its way to have more of a puzzle focused overworld. That isn't to say that Paper Mario doesn't incorporate puzzle solving. I think that the murder mystery bit in chapter 7 and the Forever Forest would rule out that notion alone. However, in Superstar Saga the entire game is just constantly throwing puzzle solving at you. And most of the time these puzzles full on embrace utilizing these new movement capabilities of controlling both Mario and Luigi. As for the battling, this is where the main differences start to present themselves. Once again, we control Mario and Luigi separately and they each have their own health and turns. They also have completely separate sets of stats, which means that whenever you level up, you do so independently for Mario and Luigi. Now every time you level up, you get a much broader choice of what specific stat it is that you want to increase. In Paper Mario, you had to choose between health, badge points, and flower points. This meant that without applying specific badges, you can't increase your power or defense. In Superstar Saga, on the other hand, you have full control of what approach you want to take. What's also cool about this is that every time you level up, all of the stats get a small upgrade in addition to whichever one you choose as your bonus. There are some nuances to this though. This means that once you commit to leveling something like power or defense up, you can't back out of it. In Paper Mario, it is as simple as equipping and unequipping badges, which allowed for much more experimentation with the player dynamically throughout the game. I don't think one system is innately better than the other, they both work perfectly fine. In general though, these games are similar in many ways, aside from simply just being turn-based RPGs. Like for instance, both Superstar Saga and Paper Mario are genuinely hilarious games with tons of side characters that are still memorable to this day. Both incorporates tons of unique designs for enemies, bosses, and NPCs throughout your adventure. So let's do a little run through of Superstar Saga like we did the previous two games and see what the Mr. Dean consensus is. So if there's one thing that we've really learned from covering these games so far on the channel, it's how important it is that they stick the landing with having a zany and crazy storyline. So how well does Superstar Saga do at upholding that tradition? Oh, don't worry, it does not disappoint with the campiness one bit. So the game starts right out with some lovely politics as a representative from the Bean Kingdom comes over to give a peace offering to Peach and the Mushroom Kingdom. Well, just f***ing kidding, they actually just steal her voice. Yup, 30 seconds into the game and they are not f***ing around, we are just getting right into it. They steal her voice and make it to where if she even tries to talk, she just summons bombs that start exploding. Anyway, it is now of course our job to save the day. Right away, we take over Toad in order to get the Mario Bros together and nudity. Yeah, we have a canon Mario shower scene, everybody. Also, just like with the other Mario RPG games, we have a quick little tutorial fight with Bowser here where we get acclimated to this game's fighting system. I mentioned earlier, but this game does flow a little bit differently than Paper Mario did, so this definitely was important to have. The Toad that gives us instructions sure is something else though. I literally successfully dodged Bowser's attack, and then he asked me if I know how to dodge Bowser's attack, and oh, for sake, Toad, just let me lock in. Right away in this little introductory area, we got a few NPCs that we can interact with, and just like in the previous games, this is one of my favorite things to do. Whether it is walking up to one of Bowser's minions and lying to them about what way to go, causing them to run into a wall, a loser, or helping a Toad find his precious belonging, there is some really cool stuff. Once we make it to the next room, Toadsworth gives us a suitcase in order to hold all of our gear, and this is pretty funny to me. I can totally imagine Mario pulling up to battle and having to awkwardly get his suitcase in place. So one funny twist about this game is that Bowser is immediately identified as not really being the main antagonist of the game directly from the beginning. Bowser's intentions for wanting to save Peach is that he wouldn't be able to take her to his castle without her bomb voice thing destroying his whole place. What a noble reason to fight, I know, right? Mario seems to be pretty on board with this collaboration though. We have this whole cute sequence of Luigi not wanting to join us on our journey and Bowser forcing him along against his will. The game paints this as cute and adorable, but you really have to feel for the guy. In fact, this game really has a lot of you want to feel for this guy moments in it. Here we have to navigate the Koopa Cruiser itself, and this kind of acts as the real tutorial in the game, and it's annoying, I won't lie. This is mainly just because you can't really skip any of the enemy attack introductions, and with there being multiple of them, it's just a tad bit obnoxious. Sure, this is great for new players who haven't played a Mario RPG game before, but if you are already familiar with these concepts, it does drag on just a tad bit. Now with that being said, there is still some really cute stuff going on while navigating through the cruiser. At one point we have to get our passport photo taken since we are going to be entering the Bean Kingdom, and I love this. We even get to do little poses using the D-pad. No reason they needed to add this in, but it's such an adorable feature. One thing that is bizarre to me though is that the photographer refers to us as mustache guys instead of Mario and Luigi. Do all the people on the ship just not know who we are? You know, the same guys that stop Bowser's plans every single time? There are so many questions being brought up to me, and we aren't even out of the prologue yet. Let's just keep this thing moving. Now once we actually make it to the deck where Bowser is, shit just really starts to hit the fan. So first off, Luigi plays observer and he sees an incoming attack and his eyes just completely pop out of his skull, which yeah, I guess we will just breeze right past that. Then Cackletta appears and starts throwing some trash talk, and Bowser ain't f***ing with it. He goes like, why do you have to have such a cool evil plan? And once again, Bowser is back at it with the gorgeously awesome dialogue. Cackletta has the audacity to say that she doesn't have the time to talk to us, and she just started this f***ing conversation, by the way. And in comes the best villain in basically anything ever, Fawful. Fawful is Cackletta's little henchman, but he literally steals the show every time he is on screen. So much so that he even becomes the main villain in Mario and Luigi Bowser's Inside Story in the future, but that's a discussion we will have in due time. Anyway, Fawful is just absolutely hilarious. Honestly, it is hard to even fight the guy. We have a little tussle with Fawful, which once we defeat him, he knocks us off the cruiser and we fall into the Bean Kingdom borderlands. I love how we see Mario and Luigi falling down in the form of meteors, and I know I've said this so many times in my videos, but if this doesn't kill Mario and Luigi, then I don't know what f***ing does. So we take control of Mario and Luigi and walk by the Koopas who were on board with us, and they clearly seem to not be doing so well. And instead of helping them out, we just kind of walk on off because we got shit to do and we can't be bothered with helping them in any way. So now it is time to cross that border, and apparently our passports are not enough, so now we have to do a jumping minigame in order to prove our ability to make it through. This doesn't really make sense to me logistically, cause aren't Mario and Luigi supposed to be the only two who are able to be this good at jumping in the whole kingdom? In that case, wouldn't no one else be able to pass this challenge and make it on through? And they clearly know who we are, so wouldn't our passports confirm our identities as Mario and Luigi? Anyway though, this minigame is really f***ing stressful for no reason. Maybe I just sucked at it, but I actually had to restart. So soon after this, we run into Bowser who got stuck in a cannon, and this goofball is making us give all of our coins for Bowser to be escorted out of the cannon, or rather violently shot out. Now perhaps the craziest part of this is that Mario just immediately forks over all of his coins. Mario, what the f***? Not even consulting your partner about this? Seriously? And this is to save Bowser, by the way, who doesn't exactly have the cleanest track record of cooperating with the Mario Bros goals. Anyway though, after being converted into the bean coin currency, we realize that we need way more, so now we need to spend our time scavenging around for coins just to save the perennial villain who kidnaps Mario's own love interest. Great. Eventually we run into these two who teach us how to navigate the terrain with spin jumps and high jumps, which are necessary for advancing in the game. This is also where we gain access to our first bros move in the game. These are special moves that use BP, which you have a limited supply of unless you fuel up by using items. Our first instance of this is doing a Splash Bros attack where we just completely wail on the enemy by jumping off of one another. Once you actually learn how to do these attacks, they become a lot of fun to master throughout the game. Now what's bizarre is that the same Toad Bros teach us how to do these bros attacks after they already taught us the special moves. The bros attacks were already available in between these two lessons, so why the f are we learning this after? They even say that they forgot, so am I just missing something or what's up? One thing that I will also say that's cool about the bros attacks is that you can change the difficulty level on them in order to increase the potency of the attack. This is a cool gameplay component that also encourages the player to really master these moves in order to be as effective as possible. When we do give Tolstar the coins that he requested to save Bowser, he ends up fighting us because who could have possibly guessed that the weird goblin guy in an unfamiliar territory may have been hustling us. Thankfully this is a very easy and straightforward fight, and with that we are officially off into the rest of the game. That was all just the intro, by the way, buckle up. Alright, so get this. As soon as we exit the cave, we find out that some dude named Prince Peasley has been kidnapped, and the profile of the person that apparently kidnapped him perfectly matches Fawful. Well, not too much later, we run into Fawful, who blocks off part of our path. By the way, did you know that Fawful has Fury? He only says it like 10 times per each interaction. Oh, damn it, I love Fawful so much. Anyway, while we are here, we are able to go ahead and get acquainted with the townsfolk here in Hoo Hoo Village. This is a small community that is located at the base of the gigantic mountain that soon enough we will have to scale up. I also love immediately talking to all of the townsfolk of whatever area I go into in any of these Mario RPG games. Eventually, after going westward enough, we can run into this house which is owned by the Hammerhead Bros. These two are professionals at making hammers, and they agree to make Mario and Luigi hammers. Now the problem though is that they are out of the required materials, so we need to do a little bit of chores and go get them ho-ho blocks from atop the mountain. Apparently this is some pretty strong stuff, so atop the mountain we go. So once we actually get on our way up the mountain, the music immediately shifts from the jolly town setting to this dark and foreboding song. This entire area is honestly just built around the spin jump move, and it was a lot of fun to navigate. Nothing about it was too complicated, despite it being a sort of puzzle design. Basically, here's how this section would work. You would see a water dispenser, make Mario drink it until he becomes a water balloon. Wait, the f***? How do they even come up with this shit? Once Mario becomes bloated with water, Luigi can jump on him and use this technique in order to put out these fires. Each fire that you put out spawns a little tornado that you can then use to spin jump your way across each little section. As for our enemies that we encounter, we only got two during this little section. First, the Beanie, which just kind of runs at either Mario or Luigi and makes you time your jump in order to do a counterattack. These are pretty simple, especially once you get their pattern down. Then we got our lover boy undead homie Dry Bones to deal with occasionally too. Dry Bones will flick his head in one of two directions, whichever one it is corresponds to whether he will attack Mario or Luigi. Once again, as soon as you pick up on this pattern, it isn't too problematic. Once we make it to this checkpoint, the statue tells us to collect 10 of these orbs while spin jumping for 30 seconds. Once you do that, oh shit, alright then. You know, for a statue acting all intimidating, this sure is one easy boss fight. So this is against Ho-Horus, I f***ing hate these names, and it uses the hide like a pussy strategy the whole time. Right away, you may notice that it shields itself in these gigantic vertical boulders, and once you hit the one that it's in, it will just shift over to the other boulder. Well, eventually you may figure out that you are supposed to damage whichever boulder it isn't under first in order to then leave it vulnerable. Once you do that, you can basically keep it in a perpetual state of being vulnerable, hence eventually leading to its demise. And once you take out Ho-Horus, you are able to proceed to the mountain summit. As we continue up the summit, we have another new enemy, that being Rex. It is a cute little dinosaur that starts out very tall, but the more you hit it, the more you shrink it. Not so tough now, are you moron? Well, you do want to make sure that you shrink Rex as quickly as you can, since when it attacks you at its max height, it's kind of impossible to dodge it. Once we do make it up the mountain, we accidentally kick the Ho-Ho brick and piss off Leblonodon the dragon, which f*** you Alpha Dream for these names. I lose my mind every single time I try to figure out what that says. Anyway, we find out that blah 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 the dragon is guarding the egg, which is here on the mountain, and lo and behold, the egg make hatches into our first boss. Also, this causes the block to conveniently fall down into the very chimney of the people who can turn it into a hammer for us. I really don't think that I need to dissect how improbable this is of happening, I think it's pretty apparent. So this fight against Drago takes a very similar concept from the Rexes that we fought earlier. He starts out all high and mighty, but upon flicking damage, he shrinks. This therefore makes his attacks easier to dodge. This is obviously significantly more challenging as his attacks are harder to dodge and do more damage, but it wasn't anything too bad. More than anything, I think that everything up to this point is more so good for practicing timing your special bros attack. And once we do take him out, the plot twist is revealed that it was actually Prince Peasley. Apparently Chuckola and her gang transformed Prince Peasley into that thing. Prince Peasley, much like almost every character in this game, is really charming and funny. He is extremely self-absorbed, going as far as posing towards the camera like every 10 seconds. It is really cute though, I like it. Also, he tells us to go to Bean Castle and even gives us his autograph in order to ensure entry. Before we can go anywhere though, we need to retrieve our hammers. We go back into the same house as before and these two just ram their heads together to forge a hammer. Yeah, sure, why not? So yeah, now we can destroy rocks and stuff, it's pretty neat. Finally, we can use our new hammers in order to proceed through the path that Fawful had blocked off beforehand. Going through here eventually leads us to this minecart area where we have to collect 10 gems in the dark. You use Mario to light up the area with a flashlight, which slowly uses power, so you need to replenish that. In concept, this is pretty cool, but in actuality, it's so slow and easy that it kind of feels like a drag despite barely lasting any time at all. And to end the Hoo Hoo Mountain Saga of Superstar Saga, we run back into the Hammerhead Bros who teach us how to use the hammers in battle. Fun! Once we get out of the Hoo Hoo Mountain region, we can begin making our way towards Bean Castle. I encountered two different types of enemies here, those being the Sharpie and the Swarm. The Sharpie is just kind of like a generic spiked enemy that requires us to use our hammers, not too much to note is going on in these fights. The Swarms on the other hand have an interesting method of attack. They burrow into the ground and will either require you to whack them with your hammer or correctly time your jump to damage them. Either way, neither one was too difficult. Eventually we make it to the Bean Castle region and honestly the absolute calamity kinda hits you. You go from the happy-go-lucky music to immediately just depressing stuff. You even see one of the townsfolk crawling towards you and just falling down. Once we make it to the castle, the guards are like, "We will not let anyone in!" And then they end up letting us in, by the way. Also, f these guards for not knowing my boy Luigi's name. It's about time he gets some actual respect. We run into Lady Lima in the hallway who doesn't believe that we really are Mario and Luigi, so she sends us down into the sewage system to prove that it really is us. Now, I have not been too negative in this video so far, but man, I hate this section. It isn't too long or anything, but man, I just find this whole sewage area to really drag on. All you do is just walk to each of these water geyser sprout things and hammer them, but there are like 4 rooms of doing this and it's just a tad bit annoying. I will say though that I like the regular enemies here since they are probably the most challenging ones we have had thus far. One of them is the Superfly, which has an interesting attack pattern where it jumps a certain amount of times, indicating how quick its attack will be. These enemies actually do require you to be on your toes, so I approve. There are also the Spinies, which are a little bit more uneventful, but it's whatever. Eventually we reach... Wait, Lady Lima? Yeah, so the original Lady Lima that sent us into the sewage was actually Chuckola in disguise, which is pretty obvious when you think about it. Anyway, now Lady Lima starts yelling at us, telling us to go after the Beanstar, so it's time to go after the Beanstar. We make it back up, and of course we are confronted by Chuckola and Fawful. I want to go ahead and add here that I genuinely hate Chuckola's laugh with every ounce of my being. She keeps bragging about how she has Peach's voice, and well, maybe you should use it because you sound ugly as f right now. Anyway, she does drop a badass line being like, "Why didn't you greet Queen Bean? You should go do that now." AKA it's time to fight Queen Bean. Basically, Queen Bean was poisoned by Chuckola into looking like this. So for this fight, we need to attack her arms first in order to remove her crown so that way we can actually attack her. Honestly, I found her attacks to be somewhat difficult to dodge at first until you really get the timing down. Thankfully, she didn't do enough damage for it to be problematic at all. Now, one thing that I find kind of stupid about this fight is how she spits beans at you, and if you jumped on them, then it would spawn in a bean enemy. That all is fine, but once you defeat her, you still have to fight any beans that were left out there. Why? Once I defeat a boss, the fight should be over. I didn't sign up for an encore here. Lady Lima then comes over explaining that we need to go to Chuckola Woods in order to find the ailment for her poison, so that is where we gotta head now. Also, while she is explaining this, Luigi is just poking at Queen Bean's unconscious body. Oh, Luigi, you are so weird and I love it. As we are leaving to head to Chuckola Woods, we get a badge delivered from Lady Lima. Basically, you can give a badge to either Mario or Luigi to increase some of their stats, with more badges becoming available later in the game. game. We can also go ahead and stop by the shop to buy an extra badge or some clothing, since that'll definitely come in handy. So for one thing, while we are traversing towards the woods, we run into a new kind of enemy, that being the Parabini. They do a ton of damage when they attack, so that does need to be kept in mind by the player, but they also do give some good XP for beating them. Eventually, we reach Chateau de Chuckola, which is one of the most memorable parts of the entire game. As soon as we walk into the chateau, we can read these signs talking about the secret ingredients of the famous drink, the Chuckola Cola. By the way, I didn't even really mention this earlier, but almost everything in this game is some kind of synonym for laughing. I didn't even realize this until I watched Dude's video on it, but yeah, it's really funny when you think about it. Anyway, the next room is a 3D maze. Oh, for fuck's sake. I thought we realized this concept was miserable in Super Mario RPG. Why are we bringing it back? Now granted, this one isn't quite as bad, but that doesn't mean I like it. Once we exit, this mysterious figure walks up with us, so we run after him and find out his name is Popple. He is a thief trying to steal the Chuckola fruit, and he recruited Bowser to join him. Basically, Bowser is now named Rookie, and it's really funny watching him vaguely remember the Mario Bros, but not enough to really put it together. The boss fight is nothing special though. I like the whole vibe of the chateau, by the way. It is eerie, but not in an outwardly scary way. It's the combination of the music and the overly purple visuals that get me. Anyway, at one point we run into this barrel and these two French dudes pop out and teach us some new hammer techniques. Now while traversing around, we can either hammer Mario or make him tiny, or hammer Luigi to make him burrow underground. Not sure about the physics on either of these, but yeah, we will run with it. Once we complete their little test and get them their goblets, we are allowed to proceed onward into the woods themselves. So now it's time to begin navigating through Chuckola Woods, and right away I love how the music just swells up from what we had in the chateau. All of a sudden it goes from slow and eerie to upbeat and tense. This section was admittedly really fun to go through, and we have a few new enemies to take on here. First was the pest net, which was filled with spikes. This meant that we could only use our hammer to attack it, and its attacks revolved around either hitting it with the hammer or jumping on it at the right time in order to avoid it. I think by this point in the game, the regular enemies are really starting to require you to use your brain in order to not waste too much health, since it's easy to get hit by their attacks. We also have the Chuck guy, which is a form of a Shy Guy, except now they have a ponytail, which is just so adorable. They were a bit easier to go up against since their attacks felt easier to time, mainly since they didn't go off screen at all. I also love how two of the areas they have a sign that gives us a riddle in the form of a hint. The first one was kind of clever, but the second one literally just tells you what to do. What the f? That's not a riddle. Eventually we reach this tree that is guarding the Chuckola Reserve, and it tells us to bring the 3 different colors of Chuckola fruit in the forest. While we are off doing that, the granddaughter of the trees teaches us that we can grab these beans from the ground with Luigi, and later on can be used for stat increases. Also, while we are out and about looking for the 3 different colors of fruit, we have to fight Wiggler, which is an easy fight and a really cool gimmick. Basically, he starts out all red and angry, but if we jump on all the spots to turn it yellow, it calms him down and makes the fight much easier to breeze through. Also, we got another new regular enemy fight here, that being against a fuzz brush. Nothing really notable about these, they just kind of release fuzzies as their attack. Once we go in, we see that Popple and Rookie have been captured, and holy shit, the soda is a monster. We fight the Chuckola Cola, and of course I f it up as always. Its attacks are pretty straightforward. The only one that was kind of difficult to time was jumping to avoid its blast. Anyway, we beat it and get trapped underground, and Mario and Luigi get separated for the first time in the game. Navigating around this underground section with just Luigi and fighting with just him feels really weird after playing up to this point, but I like it as a quick little change of pace. We make it back to Mario, accidentally kicking him into the river, and conveniently enough, it takes us right to the castle of all places because Mario. Once we get there, we inform the guards that Mario is filled with the Chuckola Reserve, and we save Lady Lima by having Mario spit it out into her. Okay, what the f***ing f***? I'm no doctor, but just no. While talking to Lady Lima, we learn some absolutely delicious lore. Basically, the Beanstar that Cackletta stole can only be awoken by a pure voice, which explains why she specifically targeted Peach. And now the homeboy Prince Peasley tells us that she's in Hooniversity, specifically attempting to awaken it. I'm serious, Prince Peasley is right behind Fawful for the most entertaining character in this game. Just the way he constantly does a cocky grin at the camera every 5 seconds gets me. So before we actually go to Hooniversity, Bean Castletown is officially rebuilt, which by the way, that was fast as f***. I'm assuming our whole trip to Chuckola Woods couldn't have been that long in in-game time, since it was quick enough to save Lady Lima, who was in dire medical condition. So how the f*** was the town just rebuilt and all the shops were up and running again just like that? Anywho, we can go talk to some of the townsfolk, which is always a joy to do. One shop sells information for 100 coins, and yeah, that's a scam. They literally just tell me exactly what Prince Peasley told me 5 minutes before this. Other than that, we can carry on with our journey though, just wanted to point that out. On our way over to the Hooniversity in the east, we fight fight some more regular enemies. These I just kind of slaughtered my way through, so I really don't know what I could possibly add to that statement. And soon after we arrive at our location, so let's see what the Hooniversity is all about. By the way, it is just now that I'm realizing this, it is Woohoo Hooniversity and not Woohoo University. As a kid I always mess that up, apparently even now. Right away, this place is just eerie. A trend I'm noticing with Superstar Saga is that a lot of the locations are kind of eerie by design, whether that's intentional or not. This one definitely was intentional though. The music specifically reminds me a lot of Banshee Boardwalk from Mario Kart 64. All of the professors have been turned into monsters here since the Chuckola attack, which also brings about the unsettling atmosphere. This place also does have one of my favorite assortments of enemies in the game. First off is the Laser Sniffet, which is of course a reference to the enemy from some of the mainline games. Its attacks are basically just shooting a ring at you that you either need to time your jump correctly or not jump at all. The attacks are kinda lame, but the enemy itself is cool. What is even cooler is the viruses from Dr. Mario making their appearance here. They have a really clever gameplay component of all disappearing if their colors match, with the colors shifting each time that they're attacked. Counter-attacking them can also be a little bit tricky with how erratically they move around. You have the Yo Bro, which, okay, I completely forgot about this one. It's alright, it just doesn't really leave any kind of impression on me. It attacks one of the Mario Bros and you need to react quickly with a jump, but since its hands are red and green, it kind of removes the challenge. Finally, we got the Eeker, which is of course a play on the word beaker. These genuinely just fooled me whenever it came to defending against them. I just could not get the timing down. One thing that I really started to notice here is that although dodging some of the enemy attacks was a little difficult at times, the overall game is way easier than I remember it. I'm sure that my memory is a little bit tainted with a certain final boss fight that we will talk about later, but up to this point I was just breezing through literally everything. I may get hit with an attack here or there, but the game also throws so many items at you that it's never really a problem. This is my main critique I had on my replay throughs, since some of the subsequent games in the Mario and Luigi series had some much more challenging moments consistently throughout the game, or at least that's what I remember. I also want to point out this room where they test out the various blocks that are used throughout the world. One of the rooms even has prototypes for the blocks used in various other Mario games, which is just such a cool Easter egg. Now every time you play Mario 64 or Paper Mario, you know that these blocks came from Woohoo Hooniversity. So the basic concept of Woohoo Hooniversity is that we need to complete these little color code things in order to make light appear and reflect off of these panels. This helps allow access to the rest of the Hooniversity. As we go further and further, we encounter other enemies like the Mecha Chomps, which just have their heads light up based on which character they're going to attack. Thankfully, you have little enough time to react to where it's somewhat engaging. In general, I really like the whole puzzle design of the Hooniversity. At one point, we need to navigate this entire area in order to spawn in another barrel so that we can complete this little laser puzzle. Well, once we do that, the game takes Luigi away from you, so we need to use Mario to rescue him, which that part was actually really cool. In fact, right before you save him, the game even recreates the original Donkey Kong game, having you jumping over barrels. Eventually, we run into Chuckola and Fawful attempting to awaken the Beanstar with some robotic Princess Peaches, which is about as creepy looking as you can imagine. However though, the plot twist is that now the Beanstar goes ballistic and breaks into the bottom floor, so the dumbass plan didn't really work out, huh, Chuckola? What is really cool is that now we actually fight Chuckola even though it's not the final boss fight. This particular boss fight was much more annoying than difficult, mainly because Chuckola attacked me like 4 straight times at the beginning and I don't really know how to properly defend yet. Also, she kept on splitting up into 3 different versions of herself, with you having to correctly guess the one to attack, which was so much fun to deal with. But all in all, the battle wasn't too bad. Once we do defeat Chuckola, Fawful sucks up her soul into his little helmet gadget thing, which Fawful does have chortles, you can't really hate him. But just whenever he is about to take us out with it, Prince Peasley! Our favorite conceited prince is here to save the day. He even kicks them way the f out of the Hooniversity. We make our way down into the base room, solving a few more pretty surface level puzzles, and bam, it's time to fight these 2 goofballs again. Yeah, so Popple the Thief still has Rookie, aka Bowser, working underneath him, and now they are going after the Beanstar. We fight them in what is basically the same fight as before, except significantly easier, which I'm not a big fan of that, but oh well. We do trounce them into the ground again, though another Peach robot falls down, making the Beanstar get livid again, and now all 4 of us hop on it and 10 seconds later fall off of it. Also, Bowser just randomly remembers who he was, which this is kind of cute. It's random, but it's kind of adorable, I guess. Quickly after we find ourselves lost here on this island, we can move up a screen and run into this building. So not only do we have even more creepy music here, but all of the NPCs that we interact with are just weird. Like, they say the most strange stuff. Unironically, this place gives me the heebie-jeebies more than basically anywhere else in the game. There are 2 buildings like this, each giving Mario and Luigi a brand new ability. Luigi gains the ability to control lightning with his hand, and Mario gains the ability to control fire. This becomes imperative for navigating the world, and it just seems so odd. Like, I know they are trying to keep the game interesting by adding new mechanics, and I'm not complaining about it, I just feel like these new abilities don't really serve the game a whole lot. Very quickly, you can use these powers to go through a pipe that brings you underwater, and welcome to my least favorite part of the game. Everything up to this point I have enjoyed doing, and I enjoy almost everything after this, but now we are underwater, which means sluggish controls. Controlling Mario and Luigi whenever you are swimming around underwater is so obnoxious to deal with. In the same way how playing underwater levels in the Mario platformers isn't fun, doing it here also isn't fun. Even the battles with regular enemies somehow feel slower than everything else. We have the same pest nuts as before, and I mean the same attacks and everything. However, now whenever you take them out, the bean inside of it just slowly floats up to the top. The first time this happens, it's cute and funny or whatever. However, whenever it happens over and over and it takes forever, I am no longer amused. We got some bloopers which have basically one attack the whole time, and since bloopers are just normal Mario enemies, I don't really find these particularly interesting to fight. And lastly, Goom Divers, which at least are variations of Goombas that are designed with some creativity. However, one of their attacks takes forever to happen, so really none of these enemies were particularly fun to fight. And here I will also bring up the fire and thunder abilities being designed with very little creativity. For example, whenever we first walk in, we need to use thunder to open up a door, but there is literally nothing to this. We just put some electricity down and the door opens and we walk through it. There is no reason for that room to exist at all. Also, I love the music in this game, but the song used for this underwater section gets on my nerves. Maybe it's the result of me already not really liking this area in general, so the music fell victim to the criticism too, but it just really annoyed me very quickly. Soon after this, we get a little cutscene of Bowser unconscious in the border area, and Fawful wakes up and infects Bowser with Cackletta. That's it for that cutscene, but very soon we will see the extremely disturbing result of this fusion. So once we exit from the water, Prince Peasley instructs us to go to Bean Bean Airport since the princess is visiting the Bean Bean Kingdom, and yeah, for sure that's the most important thing to do right now. I know the world is about to end, but we need to make sure to be cordial with the princess above making sure Cackletta doesn't get the Beanstar. So we arrive at the airport and trouble is afoot as there are piranha plants guarding the runway. Now I was being a dumbass and kept fighting them in battle for like 5 minutes straight just to then realize they continue to regrow even after beating them. So in reality, the correct thing to do is make Mario spit water on each one and then use Luigi's electricity ability to disintegrate them, which actually that's pretty gruesome now that I think about it. Also, that is actually a pretty clever use of the electricity ability. Maybe Nintendo's starting to prove me wrong. Doing this to all 5 of the rogue piranha plants causes us to fight the big bad piranha plant in the middle of the runway. This boss fight had the potential to be actually somewhat hard, with the piranha plants being capable of doing a fair amount of damage, but nope. I ended up beating this in like 3 attacks since each of my attacks did like 100 damage. And once we do beat the piranha plant boss, Peach arrives in the plane. This is where we get the big plot twist where Peach's voice actually was never stolen. Prince Peasley, being the genius that he is, saw Cackletta doing her little scheme, so he warned the princess and replaced her with Birdo. This is why the Beanstar got unsettled hearing Birdo's voice and not Peach's, and why Cackletta's plans were foiled. So basically, Prince Peasley is the real hero of this whole game, and also I don't know why he never mentioned this to us up until this point, but whatever. In fact, everyone in the Bean Kingdom, including Lady Lima, just let us assume the worst for Princess Peach for no reason, so yeah, that wasn't very cool. But at the end of the day, the game is beaten since Princess Peach is safe and we could all live happily ever after. If we go back up to the room with Queen Bean and Princess Peach in it, they begin talking about this place in Bean Bean Kingdom called Fungi Town full of toads that immigrated over. Peach wants to visit them, but the only problem is that it's on the other side of a dangerous area called Teehee Valley. This game truly does have some funny moments, like whenever the Mario Bros are asked if they would be down to escort Peach there, Luigi says no, and then Mario just smashes him into the ground and accepts the offer. As of right now, the entrance to Teehee Valley is blocked by a rock that our current hammer cannot destroy. So if we navigate over towards the east side of the kingdom, we can eventually find the Hammerhead Bros' brand new home where they can forge us a brand new hammer, therefore allowing us into Teehee Valley. Alright, so we enter Teehee Valley and right away 2 things are very clear. One is that the soundtrack for this area is a banger and one of the best Mario RPG songs of all time. I don't care what anyone has to say. Second is that both Peach and Toadsworth are stupid! So we arrive and the first thing that Peach decides to do is walk way off screen because yeah, that's obviously the smart thing to do in a desert area filled with monsters. And then Toadsworth, in an attempt to stop us from getting Peach captured, gets Peach captured by distracting Mario and Luigi. Truly ironic stuff, isn't it, you dumb f***? While we go about saving Peach 5 seconds into our mission for no reason, we encounter some of the monsters that lurk these Teehee Valley lands. First is a play on the typical Mario Goomba called the Gritty Goomba. These cause a massive sandstorm to take over the screen, limiting your vision as they attack one of the party members. These were kinda cute, but nothing too spectacular. And then we got the Spiky Sniffet, which was easily one of my favorite regular enemies in the whole game. Basically, it shoots out a spiky object really quickly, which you either have to jump over or not jump at all, and if it's the latter, then jumping hurts you. However, it may throw a wrench in the routine and shoot out a mushroom above you, which in that case you do want to jump. Some fun stuff. Alright, now unfortunately my praises for Teehee Valley kind of in there because, how do I say this? This level, holy shit. You have to slowly follow Peach and make sure she doesn't get captured, which it is very easy for that to happen. And the further you go into the desert, you have to also solve little puzzles while making sure Peach doesn't get captured, and it just turns this level into a total slog to play through. And by the way, even if you clear all the enemies out of a particular area, you still can't let Peach go off screen. Even if that happens, some random ass enemy will just appear and kidnap her. You do have the ability to talk to her and make her go the opposite direction, but that is literally as much control of where she goes as you have. This level has become pretty infamous online for being just obnoxious and terrible to play through, so I won't harp on its bad attributes too much, just know that it's really not the most pleasurable experience. Pretty soon we make it to the boss fight that guards the entrance to Fungi Town, but don't worry, we ain't done with Teehee Valley yet. So Peach runs into this big bad rock monster thing named Trunkle, and I defeated it in one turn by attacking its leaf sprout thing. Fun stuff, guys, for real. We arrive here at Fungi Town, and finally we are done with the bullshit and can relax. Honestly, perusing around Fungi Town was a lot of fun, filled with interesting and quirky toads. If we go into this house, we hear from these kids whose parents are gone all the time, and one says that their dad takes his anger out on them. Oh, wait, the f***. This feels a little on the nose for a Mario adventure. At one point, we can play this arcade game in order to earn this fancy mushroom called the Invisishroom. This game is even hosted by Gino, which is a really cute nod to Super Mario RPG. If you score 200 points in 1 minute by knocking all these items into the holes, then you get the shroom, and of course Mario immediately eats it, and oh no. Yeah, so apparently Mario now has bean fever since he isn't acclimated to eating food from around the region, which the clerk who gave us the shroom probably should have mentioned that, but it's whatever. So now it's up to Luigi to head to Gafalwa Ruins in order to get the remedy that will help save Mario. However, now the issue is that Luigi is too scared, so we need to talk to this Kamek looking guy to hypnotize him into thinking he is Mario, and wow, the past few minutes have just been one long fever dream. So we go into the ruins through the west side of Teehee Valley, and I have to say that I do kind of enjoy the dynamic of only having Luigi. This section is brief, but the regular enemy fights were actually some of my favorite in the whole game. We got the Limbo Bro, which does this really weird exposed belly attack, and this is the only one that I don't really have much to comment on. The Elite Chuck guys were pretty difficult to dodge since their patterns took me a good while to really get down. They either sprint at you with their spear or stop and swing at you. And then there were also these Ultra Glasses, which I almost never had to fight and never attacked me, so I mean, they look cool, I just don't know really what else to say. I also thought it was kind of cute how the boss fight for this area was just us jumping over these flames for a couple seconds. And finally, once we do get the Krabby Grass, it is now time to save Mario and live happily ever after. Well, nope, never mind, we arrive and immediately the most predictable thing ever happens as Peach gets kidnapped. The kidnapper is Bowletta, and wow, that thing is hideous. Once we get back to Bean Bean Castle, we get a message from Bowletta demanding that we gather the 4 pieces of the Beanstar, and we all agree to do it. The first one that we are told to get is back in Teehee Valley, so told you we weren't done with that yet. So we head up to roughly where the map tells us to go for the first of the 4 star pieces, and we see it in plain view right on the front of this boat. The problem is that now some of the people from the boat walk out and bring it in as Mario and Luigi just stand there and blankly watch. Yeah, no reason to just go get it right now while it's 5 inches away, that would just be silly. We get onto the ship and find out that it's called the SS Chuckola. By the way, did I mention that we are in the middle of the f***ing desert? Talking to presumably the captain of the ship explains that the ship just kind of ended up here. I think everyone here is too drunk off of the Chuckola to really explain to you what really happened. Eventually, if you try walking into this room following characters who took the star piece, we find out that it's only for ship personnel and we need a membership card. So then if we backtrack our way to this room, we can actually play this pretty fun puzzle game to earn ourselves a membership card. Unironically, this was more stressful and strategic feeling than pretty much every boss fight up to this point in the game. It only gave you 120 seconds, and while it certainly is not overtly difficult, that timer is sitting on you while you complete the little minigame. Using the membership card, we can go into this room following the Beanstar, and this gentleman tells us that in order to get the Beanstar, we need to get this guy from being stuck in the wall. Yeah, this is because the Beanstar piece broke part of the ship, so it's only fair, even though it wasn't our fault at all, but Mario sucks at negotiating or something, I don't know. So then if you go up above this room and hammer this broken piece of the floor, some dynamite falls down and Mario does the only logical thing, that being lighting the dynamite up right next to another person. Yes, our protagonist essentially commits attempted murder. Well, we do end up freeing the man from the wall, however in the process we also cause the ship to break apart from the mountain and then end up back in the water, therefore causing the Beanstar piece to float away because nothing in life is that easy to do. So now we have to navigate the same underwater section all over again, and I would prefer to not beat a dead horse on my opinions. We do at the very least have a few new enemies that are better than the ones we had before, but still thinking about the underwater section just kind of annoys me. Eventually though, we find this pipe that leads us up onto this lagoon where, by the way, we still have not obtained the first Beanstar piece. So we get up onto this lagoon and right away these two people are gossiping about Prince Peasley and his quest to gather the Beanstar pieces, which is pretty funny. Right after, we get trampled by this person who then tells the last two people that they saw a Beanstar piece, so naturally that means it's time to follow them. Once we go towards that direction, we can go up and get a massage, cause f it, why not? Doing so leads to the two masseuses discovering now we have our powers and teaching us to use them to navigate the world both with fire and electricity abilities. Basically, you can use fire to make both Mario and Luigi go super fast, or thunder to make them move together in the same direction. Fun stuff. We can now use our brand new abilities to get the green and red pearl bean bullshit, since these two are just holding us captive until we give them these. Really, it's a way for us to learn our brand new abilities, so it's whatever. Now that we have these, we are able to progress once more and more underwater stuff. Seriously, this is just dreadful, but thankfully it doesn't last long enough to warrant a prolonged rant. Much of this whole beach section where we are tracking down our Beanstar piece is honestly kind of a mixed bag for me. At parts the puzzles are creative and everything, but it feels like it kind of drags on so damn much, especially with how sprawling the area itself is. Honestly, let's be real, it's probably the underwater sections that really rub me the wrong way though. Alright, so eventually after repairing this whole bridge, we make it to our boss fight in order to get the first of the 4 Beanstar pieces. So it's against this crab named Hermie who fights us because we stop him from being decorated. Okay, this game's won me over again. Now let me use this boss fight as another example of this game being way too easy. Like, it is ridiculous how quickly my attacks just melted through Hermie. And yes, the attacks were pretty effective against me because I sucked at dodging them, but that didn't do enough damage to really matter because I had so many items. And my power was so strong that I just tore through this boss fight. And before anyone says that I was grinding level ups or something, I was just fighting the enemies that the game laid out for me, so unfortunately I think that this is a Superstar Saga problem. I fought every enemy I saw in Paper Mario 2, but that game was way harder than this one overall. Anyway, we beat it and get the first Beanstar piece and onward to the rest. Alright, right away we can get a really quick one by going south of the castle and partaking in this clothing minigame. We got this guy who needs us to paint this fabric by hammering water and timing it with the colors and patterns. Honestly, I appreciate having a really quick one to do that kind of flips the script on what the game has done thus far. Where the previous Beanstar piece was a long puzzle themed area filled with enemies, this one just takes up one tile and is a fun little minigame. Not really much for me to say about this one, I like it quite a bit. For the second piece, it is time to head back into Chuckola Woods. Thankfully, there is a pipe also south of the castle that acts as a shortcut. Now that we have this brand new ability, we can knock out the massive Koopas that block some of our paths, and we can make our way to the far southwest part of the woods. This massive tree houses the Winkle Coliseum, which we can pay 500 coins to participate in, and this is another fun little minigame to partake in. Granted, it is maybe a little bit too easy since it gives you so much time to complete it, but I enjoyed it. Basically, the concept is to move Mario and Luigi and knock these projectiles back at the Winkles. Now, once we do this, we get a little trinket that allows us to proceed further into this section of the woods. And here we run back into Popple again, and I'm so glad we brought back the reoccurring villains into this game. In Paper Mario, we had Junior Troopa, which although being mind-numbingly annoying and punchable and I hated that guy. But yeah, Popple is another one with a ton of personality. This fight is as easy as always though. And just like that, we have another Beanstar piece. Finally, we have one Beanstar piece left, and heading up towards the east of Hoo Hoo Mountain lies the Yoshi Theater. So not only do we have one of the most entertaining character duos in the game with some genuinely funny comedic timing, but also we have an entire area themed around Yoshi, who is only the best gaming character ever. But yeah, basically we need to find 7 bean fruits throughout the Bean Kingdom, which honestly I remember not liking this as a kid, but now it's sort of fun. It didn't take long enough to be annoying, and for the last one that I got, Prince Peasley even made another appearance after defeating a piranha plant with just Luigi. Really, anything in this game that brings Prince Peasley back makes me swoon. If we go back to the Yoshi Theater and give the Yoshi fruits to all of the hungry Yoshis, then we get 7 Yoshi eggs, and that was way too many times saying Yoshi in one sentence. This will allow us to finally get our final Beanstar piece, and we are ready to finally stop Chuckola once and for all. When we make it back to the castle and repair the Beanstar, we immediately get a message from Chuckola because she just somehow knows that we repaired it right then and there. She tells us to give it to her at Joke's End, which is where jokes go to die, and I love that name so much. The essence of why I love the Mario RPG games is shit like this. We have a humorous exchange where Prince Peasley gives us a ton of mushroom coins, but then we find out that it is barely worth anything in bean coins. And also Prince Peasley comes up with the genius idea of giving Chuckola a fake Beanstar, which wouldn't she just find out that it's fake right after? Nothing has made her stop thus far, so wouldn't she just be tormenting us for the real thing? Before we can go to the beach and surf our way over there, we need to upgrade our hammers to the ultra status. Thankfully, we just go to the same spot and it is very simple and straightforward. Nice. Now if we head over to the beach in this specific area, we can turn Luigi into a surfboard since we can't travel underwater, and thank you! Literally anything other than traversing underwater, I am so thankful for this, plus you do feel pretty badass doing this. Once we arrive at Joke's End, it is pretty quickly established that this is one of the coolest dungeon areas in the whole game, no pun intended. Now I will say that the regular enemies we fight here, although they do a lot of damage, have some pretty monotonous attack patterns. Like, it is really easy to dodge their attacks as soon as you get the hang of them. Some of them incorporate some interesting ideas, like the Glurp, which requires you to use your magic abilities. Really scratching for positive things to say about these, to be honest. Don't hate the fights, they are just underwhelming for this late in the game. Back to the dungeon though, it isn't really hard to navigate through, but the chilling atmosphere and music make this one of the most memorable locations in the game. Once you get to the second floor though, that positive perception of Joke's End dies off very quickly. Now the game separates Mario and Luigi for a prolonged period of time, and while I love this for the puzzle solving aspect during traversal, during battling this turns the game into a sluggish mess. Because these enemies have as much health as they do, it makes it feel like such a drag to make your way through all of them with only Mario or Luigi. Like I said, I think it's a cool novelty to split Mario and Luigi up like this, but because the battling was not designed for only Mario or Luigi, it has the adverse effect on battling that works against some of the other positive viewpoints I have on it. Eventually we make it up to this room, and this ice spirit named Jojara allows us to pick our own boss to fight, which is a pretty cute and adorable little feature. Whichever one you pick is basically the same fight though. And said fight is once again disappointingly easy. However, right after this room we run into Fawful, and Luigi tries giving him the fake Beanstar, and of course he doesn't fall for it considering it looks nothing like the real Beanstar, and now he steals the real deal and Alright, so now get this. We run into Fawful and Chuckola at the top of the whole building thing, and our genius idea is to disguise Luigi in Peach's dress and then convince Fawful and Chuckola that their Peach is a fake and Luigi's Peach is the real Peach. Now, I don't know whether this plan is the stupid part or the fact that they believe it. They really just deserve to give up after falling for this. Anyway, we control Luigi from their ship after they kidnap him, steal the Beanstar, and jump off and land in Teehee Valley. Thankfully, on the way down, we give it to Prince Peasley, and now we need to rescue Luigi, obviously. However, the new problem is that a second ago Fawful and Chuckola said that they are now going to attack the Mushroom Kingdom, so fun. Now we need to rescue Luigi, who got kidnapped by Popple, so Mario rescues him, and now we have to fight Popple, who now has Birdo, or well, Birdie I guess, as his new rookie. This was probably the toughest boss fight up to this point, which wasn't really saying much. This is only because Popple will now take your items and attack methods if you are not being careful. But as soon as you take him out, it's pretty easy to finish the fight. When we return to Bean Castle, we see that the entire region is being attacked thanks to Bowser's castle being way up in the sky. So now it is actually time for the final showdown up in the castle. So now in order to actually arrive at Bowser's castle, we need to go back to Hoo Hoo Mountain and talk to Blablonodon, who is the little dragon dinosaur thing. Blablonodon, that name by the way, I'm not saying that again, will take us up to Bowser's castle where it is time to put Chuckola's goals to an end once and for all. So right away Fawful says that he hates us. All good, Fawful, love you too. They also reveal that the Koopalings are here to protect the castle and we will have to fight all 7 of them, and being that this was before the Koopalings were in every game, I actually really love this. If this game were released in 2015, I would hate this, but back then the Koopalings were a pretty fresh commodity, so this is pretty cool. Also, the regular enemies here in Bowser's castle are actually difficult, thank you! They actually do damage and their attacks take some skill to avoid. I still think the game overloaded you with items too quickly, so you don't really need to worry about being too resourceful with them, but I'm still happy to finally have to use my brain during these regular enemy attacks. The enemies themselves also range from being basic enemies like Boos and Hammer Bros to unique concepts like Gunner Guys. Soon enough we run into Lemmy, who spins around us, causing all of our controls to be swapped around. Cool concept, this section is way too short and there is no real threat at all, so it kind of falls flat on its face. Speaking of falling flat on its face, this fucking Iggy boss battle. It is insulting how easy this fight is. The regular enemy fights are significantly harder and it should not be that way. In general, this whole castle is just complete a quick puzzle and fight a bunch of regular enemies, fight a Koopaling, and rinse and repeat. I hate to say it, but I didn't really like this as a final area as a little kid, and I still find it kind of annoying now. Out of all the areas in this game, this is the one that feels the most monotonous to me. I will give one positive to this area though. The latter half of the Koopaling, starting with Ludwig, is finally where the game decides to grow some balls and become challenging. Pretty much everything up to this point was a cakewalk, and just now the game randomly becomes hard. It is about f***ing time. Neither of the previous two games had this problem or even came anywhere close to it, so I don't know. I won't completely rip into this whole final level. The puzzle design is pretty cute, and there is even a callback to traditional 2D Mario platforming in it. The Koopaling fights just unfortunately became really monotonous to the point where I got tired fighting them personally. At least we go down the lava passage and oh f***, it's this fucking guy. So I would have more good things to say because Fawful is maybe the funniest villain in the entire Mario series, but this boss fight is insultingly easy. Fawful attacked me once, and that was after hiding like a pussy. We then hit Fawful like a baseball out of the castle, and no Fawful, I have fury. And finally we make it to our final battle against Bowletta. Just kidding, this takes like 2 minutes and it is once again pathetically easy. But then we get blown up by a bomb and then sucked up into our belly, and this begins the most awkward and sudden change in difficulty I have ever seen in a video game. Up to this point this has been a pretty tame game, but then all of a sudden here we have one of the most infamously difficult boss battles in Mario history, Cacletta's Soul. The game literally starts both Mario and Luigi out with 1 health. The fight is so notoriously difficult because the attacks are pretty hard to avoid and because she attacks so many times at once. All of these attacks that we face in this battle do so much damage too that you can go from full health to no health with a snap of a finger. Also, you need to take out her limbs and face in order to make her hard vulnerable, this opening happening for a brief time though. Overall, I really like the premise of this boss fight. It's just maybe a little bit jarring that it happens in such an otherwise easy game. But once we beat Cacletta once and for all, we are informed that Prince Peasley rigged the place up with explosives and we have exactly 3 minutes to leave. Wait, what? Couldn't he, like, I don't know, wait for us to leave first? I feel like the lines between saving us and attempting to kill us are becoming a little blurred now. But yeah, we make it out and the whole ending sequence is as adorable as always. Now I spent a pretty good amount of time reflecting on my thoughts on this game. All of the early Mario RPG games I have loads of nostalgia with, so I wanted to really nail down what I really think about it. So first off, as usual for Mario RPG, this nails the personality and silliness that I think is a make or break. All these games could have great combat and puzzles, however if the story, writing, and characters are dull then it all starts to fall flat. Thankfully here with Superstar Saga that doesn't happen, so it's all good. Now are there aspects of this particular game that kind of annoy me? Yeah, a little bit. As I mentioned throughout the run through of this game, this is a very easy game. In some games I don't mind an easy difficulty, however whenever it comes to a Mario RPG I do like a healthy dose of challenge. And up until halfway through Bowser's Castle I really didn't feel like this game reflected the difficulty that I come to expect with some of the other games, whether it be Paper Mario or Mario and Luigi. That isn't something that makes the game bad or anything. Like I said before, the humor, writing, and puzzle solving was all there, so I'm able to forgive this. The main other issue I have is the pacing of the story. If you really think about it, the way the story is structured, it starts to kind of feel like it's dragging on. For instance, you and Pop will find the Beanstar after searching for it and then it explodes and splits into 4 pieces. Basically, it goes from you searching for the Beanstar to now you searching for the same Beanstar 4 different times, which I think kind of subliminally made me feel fatigued as it felt like I was doing the same thing over and over. I don't really remember having this issue with any of the other Mario and Luigi games. Granted, it's been a while since I played them, but I don't know. With Paper Mario and Super Mario RPG though, the game game is split apart into 7 sections that are clearly defined and all work together towards the same end motive. This game though, the end motive is recovering the Beanstar and stopping Cackletta, which it kind of feels like you were doing this over and over in the same game. At one point you fight Cackletta and turn her into Cackletta's soul, at one point you find a Beanstar and then it splits apart and you have to do the same thing all over again. I guess what I'm trying to say is that parts of this game's story feel monotonous in a way that the other games don't. With all of that being said though, this is still a really fun and memorable game. I really can't dislike this game as hard as I tried to find criticisms for it. There may be things wrong with it, but it's still so much fun to play through. The characters from this game were even so iconic and fun that some of them, like Fawful, would return in later games and even become the main villain later on. I would completely recommend trying this game if you are into wacky Mario fun and RPGs at all, which hopefully me spending this long detailing the entire story and everything that happens in the game don't deter you from that. All in all, this game still does capture what makes the first 2 Mario RPGs so fun at its core, and I am at least happy for that, as certain other games in the future did not feel like doing the same. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and as always, peace out.